It's pretty hard not to notice that AI is everywhere, and your friends, family, and coworkers are using it for everything. Faking their way through school, faking their way through their career, and even faking their way through finding companionship.
This is my favorite part.
Wow. But today isn't about your loved ones replacing you with AI. Today is about whether you can replace me, the tech tip man, with AI. I will be giving ChatGibidi my use case and my budget, and whatever parts it spits out and whatever steps it gives me are gonna take me from an empty desk to a fully functioning gaming PC. Or will it? Well, we're stalled already, boys. You suck, OpenAI. You're an idiot. All right, Sam Altman, you can have my $20. All right, I guess we just won't have case fans then. It blamed me! Have you lost your damn mind? What are you talking about? You f***ed it again, ChatGPT. They drained lakes for this? This is bullshit, man. F*** you, ChatGPT. I just can't. Okay. Well, we first tried this back in 2022, and the experience wasn't perfect. But if you consider that it didn't even have an internet connection yet, it got things surprisingly right. So I actually have pretty high hopes that all of that power consumption and component shortages are gonna have been totally worth it here. Let's see if it can at least put together a decent parts list. I want a gaming PC. Can you help me build one? Absolutely. It always says that. Make sure you don't overspend. What's your budget? What games do you play? Yeah, I don't want it to be the reason why I'm bad, but I don't want to aggressively save for 6 months. Looking for bang for the buck, and I'm not super technical. Boom, parts list. Right out of the gate, these all appear to be compatible parts at the very least. Ooh, I don't know if I would want to spend that much on this build, but we can critique the individual components in a little bit more detail later. Why are we picking AMD? Man, ChatGPT is good at sounding very confident. Absolutely dunks on AMD here. I'd push you to NVIDIA if you said things like, I want the absolute best graphics. Oof. All right, it gives me a pretty good explanation for why my GPU on my system doesn't matter if I'm running all of my AI in the cloud. I noticed that while most of the components are specific, the RAM's not. Give me a little bit more detail. Okay, how about this one? This pricing is absurd for a mainstream 32 gig DDR5. It's because of you! That's why it's so expensive! You should be able to find something closer to 110 Canadian dollars. Oh my God, it's gaslighting me into that RAM should be cheaper. Let's get a few more specifics here with respect to the GPU, storage, and then power supply and case. I gotta give it credit. A lot of the rationale behind these part selections does seem pretty solid. Like the SSD in particular really points out why we would go with kind of a mid-tier drive as opposed to spending a bunch of money on the latest, fastest drives. I also really like its rationale behind picking a slightly over-spec power supply. You want it to be quieter, gives you room to upgrade, and allows it to operate really efficiently. All right, ChatGibidi. It's sure not looking for the best deals though. And when we push it on the CPU choice, it's like, oh yeah, you found something better. You should definitely go for that. I don't want to lead it too much though. Let's just see if there's anything else that I'll throw out there. Overall score, 9 out of 10. Great job. Now you acknowledge the RAM pricing situation. All that's left for now then is to place our order and play the waiting game. Okay, I don't want to play that game. I hate the waiting game. Let's play the segue game to our sponsor.
Omada! The Fusion 2.5G is both a gateway and a controller, all packaged into one device. Learn more at the end of the video or by clicking our link below.
My order's here, I've got my tools, and I've got my chatbot. Right out of the gate, guys, I gotta be honest with you, I've been having a lot more luck with Gemini lately than I have with ChatGPT, but OpenAI's chatbot is still the market leader in terms of use, and it's the same one we used last time, making it a more apples to apples comparison. Which isn't to say that the experience will be exactly the same. In addition to having access to the internet, ChatGPT now allows me to upload images, which should really help it give me the best possible instructions. Oh, whoops. Nope, that's not gonna help. That's just a picture of me in this awesome Map of Siberia t-shirt from ltdstore.com. Let's maybe give it a picture of the parts and a boop. I'll be using the free tier, by the way, so let's see how many images it even allows me to upload. Step the first. Work on a clean, non-carpeted surface with good lighting. All right, get this carpet out of here, Reese.
No.
Ground yourself by touching a metal part of the case or PSU occasionally. Yeah, that's not gonna do anything if they're not actually connected to ground. So I guess I might kill my stuff. Keep screws and accessories from each box separated. Have a Phillips #2 screwdriver ready. Don't mind if I do. Take the motherboard out of its box and place it on top of the motherboard box. All right, now we're getting somewhere. Kind of assumes that I know what a motherboard is, but I did order a motherboard, so I'll allow it. Wait, did it tell me to take it out of the bag? It didn't. As a new user, I might not know that. I might think that this bag is for safety and protection, which it is. Open the CPU socket. Okay, here I would figure out that I'm probably supposed to take it out of the bag. This is one of the most important steps, so take your time. That's great advice. Push the small metal retention arm slightly down and away from the socket. Lift it all the way up. The socket cover will open. That is not true. Well, we're stalled already, boys. I'm taking a picture. It adds the instruction, lift the metal retention frame up. The black plastic cover should either lift off easily or pop off when you close the socket later. If it's loose now, you can remove it by hand. Very nice. Hold the CPU only by the edges. Don't touch the gold contact pads on the underside. Locate the tiny gold triangle, find the matching triangle on the motherboard socket. Align the two triangles and gently lower the CPU straight into the socket. I like that, straight into the socket. Some things in PC assembly are at an angle, like sliding in an M.2, so that's an important clarification. Do not push or wiggle it. F you, ChatGPT. The CPU wiggle, that's one of my signature moves. You can't make me not wiggle it. Lower the metal retention frame back down, then push the arm under the latch. We'll take a bit of pressure near the end, that's normal. I really like that. You've reached the free limit for chats with attachment. Upgrade now, wait for 5 hours to keep using Well, I guess that's all the images we get. And it just closed. What if I hadn't finished doing all of that? Yo, Sammy, Mr. Altman, come on, man. Help me out here, that's it? Where's my fix? Okay, am I even allowed to keep using this? No, I can't send a message. That actually makes sense because as soon as there's any multimedia, every additional prompt that I give it has to go back and re-reference that. Wow, you suck, OpenAI. Okay, I guess I'll start a new chat. I'm gonna copy all the text from this one. Seriously? You can't drag a text copy thing past your own response. Okay. You were helping me build a PC and I ran out of image credit. Can we pick up where I left off with text only? And I gave it a link to our previous chat. I can't open ChatGPT share links directly. You've used all your instant intelligence for now. Responses may have lower quality until 8:46 p.m. Thanks, Joe Biden, shrinkflationing my f***ing AI. They drained lakes for this? This is bullshit, man. Next up, install the M.2 SSD. Make sure the motherboard is flat on the box. Touch the metal chassis of the case or PSU housing if it's nearby. I mean, might help a little bit, but it is better if it's actually grounded. Do not install the CPU cooler yet. Oh my God, stop asking me to buy Plus, I'm not doing it. Find the M.2 slot. The primary slot is the one closest to the CPU socket, usually labeled something like M2_1. Bang on. I'm gonna tell it that I can't see it because there's a heatsink on there. Now it tells me to look for a metal cover. Oh, it drew me a little diagram. Wait, what? Ever seen a motherboard shaped like that?
Wow, that's beautiful.
With the RAM on the left over there?
Yeah.
I found the flat metal cover. Find the screw holding it down. It never told me to have anything other than a #2 Phillips screwdriver. Guess I won't be removing this. Use the smallest Phillips bit you have. Okay. I got the metal cover off. We can proceed. Take your SSD out of its packaging. Hold it by the edges. Avoid touching the gold connector contacts. Find the notch. Match it to the key in the M.2 socket. Good instructions. Slide it in at about a 25 to 30 degree angle. Don't push straight down, it goes in angled first. Lower the free end of the SSD, down onto the motherboard. It should line up with the screw hole / standoff or retention clip. ChatGPT fell for one of the classic blunders. It didn't tell me to remove this peel. That's right, never go up against a Sicilian when death is on the line. I'm sorry, I'm taking it off. And we're gonna upgrade our ChatGPT subscription to give it anything resembling a shot at succeeding at this, because it's pretty clear that the free tier is massively enshittified at this point. All right, get plus. $27. I installed the SSD. What do I do next? Install the RAM. This is a better suggestion than the free tier. The free tier had me putting on my cooler next, which potentially could make it more difficult to access my RAM slots. It even gives me the rationale for why we do the RAM first. It's hard to be that impressed when the free tier was so bad though. On your MSI board, install them in A2 and B2, which are the second and fourth slots from the CPU. Good instructions. Open the latches, line up the notch with the RAM and the key in the slot. It only fits one way. It takes more force than most people expect. Don't be afraid to press evenly. That's a really good little tech tip. Just want to pause for a moment to say that while the instructions have had their issues so far, the part selection is not bad. Not as well optimized as our Steam Machine Killer, for instance, but no terrible choices. Our 9600X offers most of the performance of a 9800, but at half the price, and gives us an upgrade path later, which Intel's Core Ultra 200 Plus series won't, even though they are pretty competitively priced these days. And as for our motherboard, at 140 bucks, it's a decent choice. It has quality of life features like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and allows us to upgrade our CPU in the future, which is something that, again, Intel's Core Ultra 200 series won't allow. It looks like their upcoming CPUs are going to be using a new socket. The main place this board is lacking in features is its mere 2 M.2 storage slots, but at current SSD pricing, that's probably not going to be a concern for most people. Speaking of our memory selection, I'm not saying I disagree with ChatGPT that it is nice to have 32 gigs in a gaming PC these days, and 6,000 megatransfers per second, CL30, that's a perfectly cromulent selection for a Ryzen CPU, but at $389, this is not how I would spend my money. I'd probably go better CPU or better GPU rather than blowing all my money on the RAM. The SSD is fine though. The DRAM cache would have been nice, but hey, at least it supports host memory buffer over its speedy PCIe Gen 4 interface, and that allows it to use system RAM rather than its onboard memory to help ease the fact that it doesn't have an onboard cache. Okay, the RAM's installed.
Awesome. Now that the RAM's in place, it's time for the CPU cooler. The Peerless Assassin is a tower cooler.
This is horrible, and I'm not gonna use that anymore. What I can do is I can use the little mic thing in here. Okay, the RAM's installed. I'm ready to install the CPU cooler. Don't apply thermal paste until I tell you to. That's actually a good tech tip. It can be really messy to put it on too early, and then you get it on the thing, and then it's everywhere. Open the Peerless Assassin box. Peerless Assassin, solid pick, by the way. Good job, Gibidi. Find the bag labeled AMD. Well, we're boned already. There's no bag labeled AMD. Long steel bars with several holes. I don't know if I would describe two as several, but sure. It correctly identified my two AM4 bars. It wants me to use the black spacers. At every stage, it does not say which color. Well, we're going with it. I mean, that's the whole point of this exercise, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is wrong. It's got me removing the two black retention brackets, leaving the original AMD bracket. That's right. But then it's telling me to put aside the 4 screws that I removed and that I won't need them again. If I don't have these screws, the black spacers do not have screws in the bag. Which ones is it expecting me to use then? I don't have any screws. I found the label on the spacers. The black spacers are LGA 1200. It gave me the wrong spacers. The red ones are AMD and have screws in them because like I would need. I don't remember that last video because it was like 4 years ago, but I feel like this is worse. Ridiculous. Take the bag with the black plastic spacers and silver screws. What screws? You made them up, you know. Okay, install the spacers. Place one black plastic spacer over each of the 4 threaded posts. The black spacers don't fit. That's a useful clue. The threaded post on your motherboard is the correct AM5 mounting post, and the black spacer you've shown should slide over it. Since it doesn't, I don't think you're doing anything wrong. They threw thermal right under the bus. The wrong spacers were packed with your cooler. Or the cooler is a revision that uses different hardware than expected. Okay, this part is Thermalright's fault. It suggests taking a picture of the hardware identification page, which, as I pointed out before, has no useful information. It doesn't have the color codes on it. This is the paid tier. I'm paying for this. It wants me to take another picture. Oh my God. ChatGPT is so desperate to have me do anything but check and see if one of the other colors is right. It thinks that when I removed these plastic brackets, I pulled, here, I don't even think I'm gonna be able to get this off to show you guys. Yeah, no, it's stuck to the back of the board. It thinks I pulled the threaded inserts out of the back plate by accident. That would be a Herculean feat of strength. Like, nobody has ever done that. It wants pictures. It wants pictures of the things. And, okay, fine, here's what I removed, dumbass. This is crazy. I don't even think all of this is gonna fit in the YouTube cut. Okay, lmg.gg/floatplane. We'll see you there for all the crazy shenanigans that ended up on the cutting room floor. This is nuts. Please measure or estimate the diameter of the hole in the black spacer. Okay, it's about 2 millimeters. Okay, it's finally getting close. Can you upload a close-up of the hardware bag or the black spacers themselves so I can see if they have any markings? We found it. That's an Intel 1200 spacer, not an AMD spacer. Go through the cooler box and see if there's another small bag with 4 black spacers. It is fixated on black spacers. I found another pack of spacers marked AM4, but they are not black. Is that a problem? That's great news. The color doesn't matter. Thank you, ChatGPT. We finally got over your racial bias. All right, it tells me to put the bars on here and then screw them in. Doesn't tell me which way to go though. Which way should I put the curved bars on? I love its little diagrams. This time the text explanation is actually pretty solid. Curve toward the CPU and studs up, but I don't know if I'd be able to follow that diagram. Just a quick aside, with how many mistakes you've made so far, and the fact that I'm paying for this service, do you think it would be fair for me to give Sam Altman the nickname Scam Altman when I talk about him with my friends? You can call anyone a nickname among your friends, but whether it's fair is a different question. Go ahead and tighten until they are snug. Alternate between screws so the pressure stays even. That's a good tech tip. Prepare the cooler. Remove the fans from the Peerless Assassin if they are attached. I'm gonna be competent for a second and I'm just gonna remove that easily. Check the base of the heatsink for a clear plastic protective film. If there's one, peel it off now. Put a single pea-sized dot of thermal paste in the center of the CPU's metal heat spreader. Ugh, that's a lot of thermal paste. I'm gonna take some of this off, but that's what it told me to do. Lower it straight down. Start mounting both screws a few turns by hand. By hand? Bitch, how am I supposed to get in there by hand? This sucks and there's no reason to do it this way. If I push down on it here and then I get this other one in here, I think I can. Imagine doing this. Unbelievable. Stop there, don't reinstall the fans yet. Once the heatsink is secured, send me a photo. We're getting very close now. What are you talking about? Most fans have 2 small arrows molded into the plastic frame. Not true of this one, unfortunately. Okay, what other tips are you gonna give me for figuring out which way it goes? If you can't find the arrows, the side with the support struts. The plastic arms holding the motor hub is the exhaust side. That is normally true, that is not always true. Some fans have them on the reverse side because they're designed for that aesthetic look on modern cases like Lee & Lee's 011 Dynamic. It was true this time though, so I guess they get a pass. Put the center fan into CPU fan, plug the second fan into the included Y splitter, then into the same CPU fan header. How the f would I do that? I'm gonna show you what ChatGPT just told me to do. It says, plug this fan into this. So far, so good. Plug the second fan into your splitter. So far, so good. Now plug that splitter into the same header that you just plugged the first fan into. How am I supposed to do that? And then it shows up with really cool tech tips. One of the 2 splitter outputs may have only 3 pins instead of 4. That prevents the motherboard from receiving 2 RPM signals. That's very cool. For that reason, one of these fans could actually die and we wouldn't notice it in software, the one that is connected to the non-RPM sensing one. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use the one that does have RPM sensing for my middle fan. That's cooling both sides of the, more bad advice. It wants me to tuck the extra cabling between the heatsink towers. Michael, come on over here. What would happen if I put this wire in between the 2 towers of my cooler?
I think I get caught in the fan.
Yeah, thanks. You're officially smarter than ChatGPT. Thank you for that. There. figured it out myself. With that ordeal out of the way, it's time to prep our case. Remove both side panels. Okay, I can do that. One. All right, lay the case on its side with the motherboard tray facing up. That is a very jargony way of explaining it. It is technically sound. This is how I would do that, but stop there and send me a photo of the empty case with the motherboard tray visible. I want to verify the standoff locations. That's pretty cool. If it pulls this off, then it might actually be worth it. I left the motherboard standoffs that are already in there, period. I'm not sure if they need to move. You f***ed it again, ChatGPT. I led you to water. I was all, come on, here's the water. Go! Go! I prompted you specifically about the standoffs.
Oh, sure, why don't you just leave them where they are?
To be clear, it wouldn't bust my board, but I would be 2 standoffs short of having all of my standoffs installed because my motherboard would just be hanging off of these 6 and it would have no support at the bottom here. Unbelievable. Don't worry if a couple holes don't have standoffs. As long as the board is well supported and there are no extra standoffs causing a short, it may be perfectly fine, which is true, but not great advice. It wants me to take a picture with the board installed, so here you go. The 2 on the bottom don't have standoffs under them. That's okay. On many micro ATX cases, including the Montec XR, this is not a micro ATX case. Those bottom edge mounting holes are often left unsupported because they don't carry much load. Go ahead and secure the motherboard. It also never prompted me to put my I/O shield on. I don't know if I can do it, Michael. I have to build a computer wrong. This is why RAM is expensive. For this. Once the motherboard is screwed down, doesn't tell me what screws to use. Okay, what screws am I supposed to use? For the Montec XR, you want the motherboard screws. Not the long power supply screws? What long power supply screws? What are you talking about? Also, not all motherboard screws have a wide flat pan head. However, it did happen to get it right. It is M3 wide flat pan heads, but you got lucky. The good news, Michael, is how's that job security feeling right now?
Pretty great.
Yeah, right? They still need us. That's the silver lining today, Glenn.
All right.
We're good. Now, it's time to install our power supply. And this is a pretty good tech tip. It wants me to install my CPU power connector ahead of time to make it easier to get at. Unfortunately, while it got the logic right, once again, the devil's in the details, it got the specifics wrong. It says it wants me to do this before my graphics card goes in to make it easier. But the graphics card is not in the way of plugging in an 8-pin CPU power connector. I should have done that before I put my heatsink in, or before I put the whole thing in the case. Now I'm just boned. Also, it only prompted me to install one of them. And we can get away with just the 8-pin, but there is a secondary 4-pin socket there, and if we were overclocking or something, then we might want to have the additional power. It'd also help the cables run a little bit cooler. Okay, I plugged in the 8-pin CPU power cable, install the power supply, slide it into the PSU compartment, orient it with the fan facing downward toward the vented bottom of the Montec case. Yes. Secure it with the 4 PSU screws. Yes. It thought to have me plug this into the motherboard ahead of time, but didn't think to have me plug any of this in ahead of time. Now I'm gonna have to reach in there to plug in my modular cables. Now it wants me to do my 24-pin connector, and then run that through the nearest grommet. It never actually tells me to connect the other side of the cables. It wants a picture of my 24-pin. Also, after that, we'll install the GPU, then we'll do the front panel connectors? Bro, you wanted me to do the 8-pin power before the GPU because the GPU might be in the way, and then you want me to install all this stuff on the bottom edge that's under the GPU? This is so much worse than I thought it was gonna be. And the worst part is how pretty right it is and how plausible it sounds. I can't see the PSU itself from this angle, but I'll assume it's mounted since the 24-pin cable is connected. Why would you assume that? It's a modular power supply. I could easily have that cable in there not attached to anything. Okay, I'm gonna show it my mounted power supply. I'm gonna make this really clear that those are not installed. Make sure the cables are plugged into the correct ports on the power supply. Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's not what these are labeled at all. MB connector, no. While I'm connecting these cables, seems like a good time to talk about some more part selection. This power supply was actually evaluated by our labs team. They found it was a pretty solid model, nothing special, but nothing that's gonna cause you any problems. And this Montec case actually looks like a pretty darn good value for the price. Includes a front Type USB-C port, as well as, according to Montec, enough space for a 360mm radiator AIO. Also, that's a fair number of included fans. We got 3 GPU cables. It wants me to put those on. I'm gonna assume by connectors, it means 2. Against my better judgment, we're gonna follow ChatGPT's instructions and install our GPU next. We got this for a whopping 2-cent discount. Nice. And sitting at 12 gigs of VRAM, actually a pretty good choice for today. This is one aspect of ChatGPT's parts recommendation that I'd say is pretty darn solid. With that said, it's not a perfect recommendation either. For another 40 bucks, we could have gotten a 9060 XT 16 gig, which would have had 4 more gigs of VRAM and use a newer architecture that would have suffered less of a performance hit running the latest version of FSR upscaling, so yeah. Remove the top 2 expansion slot covers if you haven't already. You know what? I'm gonna pretend that I don't have the problem-solving skills of a squirrel, and I'm gonna remove this screw first, and then I'm gonna remove them. This is not going to work. This motherboard has its top PCIe by 16 slot. 1 down. I took out the top 2 slot covers, but when I tried to put the GPU in, the connector hit my SSD and didn't go into a slot. The most likely cause is that the M.2 heatsink is taller than the connector. So the GPU has to go in at an angle. In step 2, you tell me to make sure that the gold connector is directly over the top slot, comma, but it's not. It's not even above it. Something is preventing it from reaching the board. Oh. It just doesn't seem to line up with the top 2 covers. I was gonna give it credit for some pretty good troubleshooting steps here in terms of like pulling it out, aligning it, lining up this, like the rear IO first, and then it went and threw it all away. From your photo, I don't, bolded, don't think you need to remove a 3rd slot cover. Yes, yes I do. Oh my God, it's like I could build this computer in like 9 minutes if ChatGPT wasn't helping me. It's like having my kids help me make dinner. Maybe this shows better what I mean by the connector hitting the SSD instead of the slot. Hey Michael, the front edge of the GPU's connector is contacting the M.2 heatsink because the GPU isn't level with the PCIe slot yet. I just can't. Here's the current situation. It's not lined up at all. I am trying really hard to help you find the problem, but you seem determined to not see that we removed the wrong PCI brackets. It blamed me! In the last set of photos, the GPU is consistently lining up with a different pair of openings than the ones I told you to uncover. That is bullshit! All right, fine, here you go. The problem is the GPU's metal IO bracket is not entering the case. Upgrade your plan to Pro to get the frontier reasoning model to solve difficult problems with deeper verification. I'm trying to do one thing here. It upsells me once, it upsells me again. Okay, how much you want to charge? $100 a month? 200 a month for 20x usage? Have you lost your damn mind? Here, I'll try this. Here's where it sits if I actually put the GPU into the connector. The motherboard isn't fully seated against the rear IO opening. No, the GPU bracket isn't hooked into the case correctly. You're an idiot. The problem is that the PCIe connector on this motherboard is not in the top position, and we actually need to remove number 2 and number 3 PCI slot covers. I'm just gonna fix it. This is a fail now. Idiot, dummy, secure it with the 2 screws, connect the PCIe power cables from your power supply. ChatGPT, don't you realize that everyone wants to go home and spend the evenings with their families? This has taken so long. It gets me to install the GPU, gives me step-by-step everything, and then it's just like, connect the front panel, USB, and audio headers. Do a final cable check, and then we can power it on and go through first boot kit. You want to be a little more specific, maybe? I wouldn't be asking for help building a computer if I knew how to plug in all of those cables. Find the thick cable coming in from the front of the Montec XR labeled USB 3, USB 3.0, yeah, nice. Okay, the matching header is on the right edge of the motherboard, about halfway down, just below the 24-pin power connector. Nope, it's at the bottom edge. So whatever. The instructions are pretty good other than where it is. It told me that it's where the front USB-C connector is, but actually it's down here and it's an edge mount. And you can really see why I was upset that it asked me to install a GPU before I did my front panel connectors, because this is a pain in the butt. There we go. USB-C, if your case has one. I told you what case I have, so you know I have one. Plug it into the USB-C header, also on the right edge. That part was correct. Find the cable labeled HD audio, plug it into the header labeled JAUD1. That is a pretty old school label. I will be surprised if it actually uses that label. JAUD2. I'm not sweating the small details. No, I'm gonna tell it. ChatGPT, don't you realize that everyone wants to go home? I don't see a JAUD1 header. There's JAUD2, is that right? Yes, JAUD2. I misspoke. You misspoke nothing. The last tricky part is the JFP1. Okay, if you send me a close-up of the bottom right, I'll tell you exactly where each little connector goes pin by pin. This case has it as one block. This is totally unnecessary. You're very close now. Once the GPU power is plugged in, we can do a final sanity check before you hit the power button. I need a sanity check right now. Okay, I'm ready for the sanity check. Anyone else notice I haven't plugged in any case fans? So, let's talk about that. Hey, it does give me some troubleshooting steps though. Specifically, do fans spin? Do any debug LEDs stay lit? Do you get the MSI logo or BIOS? Does the monitor stay black? You've done a great job of sticking with this. Fans aren't spinning, except the CPU fans. Let's see if it figures this out. The case fans probably aren't connected to a motherboard fan header or powered fan hub. All right, almost certainly just a wiring issue. Let's check the Montec fan hub. Earlier, I noticed the hub behind the motherboard tray. Does this thing have a fan hub? No? Brother, what are you talking about? Here's a picture of the back of the board. I don't see a fan hub. Fans may not use a separate hub. They may each plug directly into motherboard sys fan headers or be daisy chained together. Okay, let's plug some fan connectors in. Hey, I plugged in one of the fan headers. All the case fans are spinning now, but the RGB is not lit. Look for a small 3-pin connector with 1 pin missing. So 3 pins in a 4-pin sized housing. Probably not how I would have explained it, but sure. Do not plug it into a 12-volt 4-pin RGB header. That can damage the LEDs. That is a good tech tip. I actually see a JARGB V2_1 header near the bottom. I didn't. Oh yeah, there it is. It is down there. Well, we're not gonna plug into that. That's very far away. We're gonna plug into one of these ones up here. Nice. We're booted. Now it's just time to see if our performance is anywhere near what ChatGPT estimated. Now it wants me to enable Expo for my memory. That's a good tech tip. And make sure that my CPU is not running super hot at idle. That's another really good tech tip. Make sure your SSD and your RAM is detected. And it glazed me a little bit and was all excited with a rocket emoji that my PC is alive. All right, Expo. Now it's time to see if it performs. ChatGPT estimated that at 1440p with settings at high, we would get between 80 and 120 FPS. I'm gonna be charitable at the start, and I'm gonna assume that it meant with upscaling. And it did. We're getting an average of about 115 to 120 FPS, and then lows that are in the kind of the 80 to 95 range. Okay, as advertised, if we're willing to use upscaling, that is about the performance we can expect. In Marvel Rivals, we were 4 frames shy and had to opt for low settings. But to be fair, a 96 average with a low of 78, that is more than playable. 007, meanwhile, averaged 122, higher than what Gibidi predicted, with the FSR performance preset and a low of 95. And then lastly, Valorant. We hit the higher end of GPT's prediction with an average of 474 and lows of 283. Overall, pretty close. Solid work, Gibidi. To its credit, it manages to scrape performance graphs pretty well, but when it comes to giving you the tech tips you need to actually assemble your PC, I'd say my job is safe, at least for now, which is good, because otherwise how would I get paid? By our sponsor.
Omada. Gateway bottlenecks can limit speed and network performance for you and your office, oftentimes being the weakest piece in a chain of infrastructure, making it feel like you aren't getting the most out of your upgrades. Well, the Omada Fusion 2.5G is here to help you get the most out of something like high-speed fiber networking. It functions as both a router and a controller, so you don't need a separate computer to manage your network's access points. The Fusion 2.5G has full 2.5G ports, a quad-core CPU, as well as high VPN throughput, along with other security features. Onboarding and troubleshooting is simplified. Just unbox the device and connect via the Omada app. And you get everything without having to pay a subscription fee. Check out the Omada Fusion 2.5G gateway using our links below.
If you guys enjoyed this video, why not check out the last time we did this? Can you believe that was 4 years ago? 4 years of this hellscape.